Right, we are going to look at standard form again. Um, this time we're going to multiply in standard form. I'm going to show you when we get a final answer, we're going to leave it in standard form or convert it back into standard form, or we are going to write it as a whole number. It depends on the question. Sometimes they ask you to leave it in standard form, sometimes they ask you to write it as a whole number. So let's have a look at example one. Bear with me because I'm going to write these down one at a time. So we are going to calculate 2 times 10 cubed, so 2 times 10 to the power of 3 times by 2 times 10 to the power of 4. Really, we don't need the brackets. We could just write 2 times 10 cubed times 2 times 10 to the power of 4. Right, the trick here is to put the number bits together, so the 2's on their own, and times them together, and then we'll have the 10's of to the power, and we'll put them together, and then we'll simplify the answer. So the way we write this is we take the number bits without the powers of 10, and we do 2 times 2 because those are the numbers in the question, and then we also multiply it by 10 to the power of 3 times it by 10 to the power of 4. Okay, and we're almost there. That's a good way to start, good place to start. So we can do 2 times 2 very easily. So 2 times 2 is 4. And then what we want to multiply it by is 10 cubed and then 10 to the power of 4. But that's the same as saying I'm going to times it by 10 3 times and then times it by 10 another 4 times. So in total, I've times it by 10 7 times. Okay, so 3 plus 4 equals 7. So whatever these powers are, whenever we're multiplying these standard form numbers, we add them together. Okay, sometimes they're negative numbers, so we might end up taking away. Right, I can leave this in standard form. That's fine. This number is between 0 and 10. So that's fine, but sometimes they might ask us to write it as a normal number. So whenever it's a whole number, this just tells you how many times you need to move the decimal point. Okay, so it's 4, and then I need to move the decimal point 7 times, and it's going to make it bigger because it's a positive number. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So the decimal point will now go there, and I need to pop in the zeros. And I know from experience that there's going to be 7 zeros because there's no decimal number after the 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So the other way we could write it is as we would put a comma after every 3 zeros, working backwards, is 40 million. We don't need to put the comma in. So if they ask for it in standard form, we write it with the times 10 to the power of something. If they ask us for it as a number, then we write it as a number. Okay. But the calculating, let's just recap what we did. We took the numbers, we times them together, and we got 4. Then we took the 10 to the powers, we put them together and times them. Remember, when we're timesing, we need to add these two numbers. They're both positive, so it becomes a positive 7. Okay. Right, let's have a look at another example. Because not always the questions are the same. So what we've got here is calculate 5 times 10 to the 2 times by 6 times 10 to the minus 8. So this time I've got a minus power. Okay, let's just shift this a bit. I've got a minus power. So we do everything the same, except this time when I add 2 and minus 8, I'm going to get minus 6. So my new power for my 10 is going to be minus 6. So let's have a look. So 5 times 6, that's how we write it first. 5 times 6 times by 10 squared times by 10 to the power of minus 8. So 5 times 6 is 30. And then if I were to add 2 and minus 8, 2 plus minus 8 equals minus 6. So the new power is going to be minus 6. But this is where we have a little problem. This is not in standard form. 30 is not a number between 0 and 10. So what I need to do is I need to take a 10 away from this and put it onto this. Okay, so that's going to make this number bigger. This minus 6 is going to get bigger. And actually, when you're working with the minuses, when you get bigger, you get closer to 0. So it's actually going to become minus 5. Okay, so I'm going to take 1 10 away from this and I'm going to add it to this. So minus 6 plus 1, because I'm adding 1 10, is minus 5. So what we get is 3, now this number's between 0 and 10, times 10 to the minus 5. Right, if I wanted to write this as a normal number, because it's a minus, I'm going to move the decimal point in the other direction and I'm going to make the number, I'm going to put zeros in front of the 3. So we've got our 3.0. You don't see it, but you know it's there. And we're going to move the decimal point 5 times to the left. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And the decimal point now goes here. But I've got to fill in a lot of zeros. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and I need a 0 in front of the decimal point. So the new number is 0.00003. Right, that was example 2. So let's just recap what I did. 5 times 6 gets me 30. 10 squared plus times by 10 to the minus 8. Okay, so we put those together and we got 10 to the minus 6 because 2 minus 8 is minus 6. Then I had to convert it back into standard form. So that 30 became a 3, but then I had to change this power. Remember, I add the powers. So minus 6 plus 1, because it was a 10, became minus 5, and that's where I got minus 5. Right, last example, and then I'd like you to have a go at the questions. Right. Example 3. What have I got? I've got 1.4 times 10 to the power of 5, and I'm going to times that by 2.1 times by 10 to the minus 11. Right, tricky, but let's just work with the numbers. Let's just move the two numbers. So that's 1.4, and I'm timesing it by 2.1. Then I'm doing 10 to the power of 5, and I'm timesing it by 10 to the minus 11. So the method hasn't changed at all. Okay, 5 plus 11, minus 11, sorry. That's going to be 5 take away 11. So that gets you minus 6. So what we need to work out is 1.4 times 2.1. That might be a bit tricky. So what we need to do is we need to do our grid method. So I ignore the decimal points. That's 14 times 21. 14 times by 21. I need to work this out. So 2 times 10, 2 times 1 is 2, with 2 zeros, that's 200. 2 times 4 is 8, with 1 0. 1 times 10 is 10, and 1 times 4 is 4. Now let's add these together. 200, 80, 10, and 4. So add the columns up, all the digits, that's 4. All the 10s, that becomes 9, and all the 100s, that becomes 2. Right, there are 2 numbers after my decimal point, so I'm going to have to make sure there's 2 numbers after the decimal point. So the 4 and the 9 are going to be after the decimal point, so therefore the decimal point is going to go in between the 2 and the 9. So what we've got is 2.94. Okay, so we've got here 2.94 times by 10, and remember 5 plus minus 11 is minus 6. Right, to write this as a number, I don't have to do this taking a 10 away and adding a number to the power this time, because this number is between 1 and 10. So I need to turn this into a number as well, because it's a minus, then I'm going to have to move the decimal point to the left 6 times. So we've got 2.94. Let's take the decimal point once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, 6 times. Decimal point goes there. Let's put a 0 in all the gaps. And remember, we need a 0 at the front. So the number is 0.000000294. Look, if you can do some of these, then you're doing really well. These are quite tricky. Just do the same process. The questions are slightly different. Sometimes you're multiplying decimals. Sometimes you've got a negative power on the 10, but you're either moving the decimal point to the left when it's negative, or you're moving the decimal point to the right when it's positive. Okay, that's the key thing to remember when changing between standard form into a normal number. Okay, that's it for now. If you get stuck, make sure you send me an email and I'll do what I can to help you. Have a great day.